Hello students. In today's video, we are going to see the classification of crystalline solids. Based upon the nature of the constituent particles and the binding forces or the forces of attraction present between them, crystalline solids are further classified into four categories. That is ionic, molecular, covalent and metallic. But before going into the detailed study of those type of solids, let us take some glance on few points what you must know in order to understand the characteristic properties and the type of crystalline solids we are going to study. So what are the main points? What you must know is, if I want to show a crystalline solid, it exhibits the basic constituent repeating unit, and that is called as the unit cell. So let us see the structure of the unit cell. If I try to draw the unit cell is something like a cube. Now this is the structure of a unit cell. The corners of the unit cell, that is this position, we call this as the lattice point. Now, if I see the other atom, ion or the molecule which is placed, it will be at this corner. That is the lattice point. And there must be some force of attraction that will hold the two atoms, ions or molecules here between them. So taking into consideration this structure of the solid, let us see some important points what you must know to understand. So the first very important point is what type of atom, ion or molecule is present at the lattice point. So the first point which is important is the type of atom, ion or molecule present at the lattice point. This is the first point. Second important point is the nature of interacting force. By force, I mean the bond. Third important thing is strength of this interacting force. And fourth, but very important point is you have to check if there are free ions or electrons present in the crystal structure so that you can predict its conductivity. Very important to note that any crystalline solid conducts electricity only and only when there are free ions or free electrons. Then only I can say that it is a good conductor or a bad conductor of heat and electricity. Taking into consideration those 4 points, now let us go and study the 4 type of crystalline solids. So the crystalline solids, they are classified in 4 types as I said. So let us take the first one, that is molecular solid. Second is ionic solid. Third is covalent solid. Covalent solid is also called as the joint structures what they form. So we say it is a network solid. And the fourth is the metallic solid. Now students, molecular solid is again classified in 3 types. First is non-polar molecular solids. Polar molecular solids, and hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So this molecular solid is classified further in this way. To understand those molecular solids, you must know the strength of the bond and the type of the bond that exists between the constituent particles. So let us first start with the molecular solids. Very important thing about molecular solid is, if you see this structure, that is the unit cell, in molecular solids, the constituent particles which are occupying the lattice points, they are molecules. Now when I say they are molecules, there must be the intermolecular interactions like van der Waal, maybe hydrogen bond or dipole-dipole interactions. So based on that, let us go into the first type, that is molecular solid. Now what are molecular solids, student? The constituent particles occupying the lattice point are molecules. Then we call it as molecular solids. Now depending upon the interaction between those molecules, we further classify molecular solid in those three types. So let us study those three types one by one. So the first is non-polar molecular solids. Examples here can be the non-polar molecules like the diatomic molecules Cl2, H2, methane. You can have even the inert gases like helium, neon, because they also are atoms but they are stable, and so we can have this type. You can have I2, etc. as the examples for non-polar molecular solids. Now what should be the definition for non-polar molecular solids is the constituent particles occupying the lattice points, they are molecules held together by weak van der Waals interaction. Now what is this interaction, student? If you see the structure here, those constituent particles, if I take the example of hydrogen, then this will be your H2 molecule and H2 molecule, and the bond between them, this will be van der Waal interaction. So let us draw the structure here. So if I want to show the iodine molecule or hydrogen molecule, accordingly you have to place the molecules here. I'll take for hydrogen. This is hydrogen. Now what the intermolecular interaction here means, this particular bond, this is van der Waal interaction. Van der Waals interaction. You know, students, that van der Waal interactions, they are very, very weak. So when the interactions, they are weak, as I said, you have to go for the strength of the bond. So if the interactions, they are very weak, the crystal will be soft. So what is the characteristic of this crystal is, it is soft. Second very important thing about this is that you can see that there is no free ion or free electron in the crystal, and therefore they are bad conductors of heat and electricity. Next very important thing, as the bond is weak, as I said, they are soft and they will have low melting and boiling points. Again, as the interactions, they are weak, they are usually gases or liquids at room temperature. Why I say at room temperature? Because you know that the physical state can be changed by changing the pressure temperature conditions. So this is all about the non-polar molecular solids. Now let us come to polar molecular solids. Polar molecular solids, examples here, you have the polar molecules like HCl, SO2, etc. Before going into the polar molecular solids, let us see what type of interaction will exist between this. So for that, I am taking the example of HCl here. Now if I draw HCl is a covalent molecule, but if you see the electronegativity of chlorine is more than that of hydrogen, and because of that the bond here gets polarized, and because of this polarization the atoms here, they acquire, chlorine will acquire a del negative charge, while hydrogen will acquire a del positive charge, and a dipole is produced. When a molecule having a permanent dipole in this way approaches the other molecule having a permanent similar dipole like this will have negative, positive, then the interaction or the bond that exists between a dipole created molecule and a dipole created molecule is called as dipole-dipole interaction. So after understanding this, let us come to what are polar molecular solids. So in polar molecular solids, the crystal, if I show, the lattice points, they are occupied by the molecules which have a permanent dipole or the molecules which are polar in nature. So what I will have here, student, is HCl. The other molecule here will be HCl, and the bond which exists here is a dipole-dipole interaction. Now, this is a polar molecular solid. So what is a polar molecular solid, student? Is one where it is a crystalline solid in which the constituent particles are polar molecules bonded to each other by dipole-dipole interaction. Interaction, by this I mean the forces. So this is about the definition. Now what else you can say about the polar molecules? So first I will see the strength of the bond. So this is an intermolecular interaction and it is a weak interaction. So those crystals even they are soft. Second is they are low melting and boiling point. So they have low melting and boiling point. But it is very, very important to note that dipole-dipole interactions, they are comparatively stronger as compared to van der Waals interaction, and therefore the melting point of polar molecular solids is comparatively higher as compared to that of the non-polar molecular solids. So this is very, very important. Next, third point, so I can write here comparatively higher than non-polar molecular solids. Do you see any ions which are free or electrons free? So as there is no free ions or electrons, they are also bad conductors of heat and electricity. So they are bad conductors of heat and electricity. As the bonds, they are weak, again they are gases or liquids at room temperature. Very easy about the polar molecular solids. Let us come to the third type, and that is hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So let us first understand what is that hydrogen bond. Students, whenever hydrogen is attached or bonded to any electronegative element like fluorine, nitrogen or oxygen, then you see the presence of hydrogen bond, right? Now, let us take the example here. As I said that this can be the example where you have hydrogen attached to fluorine, nitrogen or oxygen. The best example to study this type of crystal is water. So let us go for the structure for this. So the structure will be something like this. This is your H2O and the second H2O. Now what type of bond will exist here, student? So this particular bond is your hydrogen bond. Right? Comparatively it is stronger bond. So let us see what is this hydrogen bonded molecular solids. But before going into this, very important question or the important thing what you know students, that solid ice, it floats on liquid water. That means ice floats on water. Means ice is lighter than water. So this can be one of the questions. So to understand this better, let us go into the structure of water first. So if I ask you to draw the structure for water, it is oxygen bonded to two hydrogens. So I will draw the structure in this way because I want to show the structure of water. You know that it is tetrahedral. So if I see this is the first molecule, the second molecule I can draw in this way. Now this is the hydrogen bond that exists. So this is the hydrogen bond and this is your second molecule what exists here. Now if I want to show the type of structure water exhibits, so I can join those structures in this way. So you see that the structure here is tetrahedral, right? So the bond that exists, and this will continue students because our hydrogen bonding will extend in all the directions forming a big network here. Now the structure is tetrahedral, but it's very, very important to note that according to X-ray studies, the structure of solid ice is almost identical to that of liquid water. Intermolecular hydrogen bondings that are present in ice, it forms a hexagonal three-dimensional structure. Now, if you see here that free ions or electrons, there is no free electron or free ions, and therefore even pure water is a bad conductor of electricity. If you see the bonds there, the bond is hydrogen bond, which is again an intermolecular interaction, and so this is also a low melting solid. Now let us come to the concept why it is lighter. So for that, let us understand what actually the mass or the volume of this water is based upon the crystallographic studies. So students, from the knowledge of atomic radii of hydrogen and oxygen atoms, the volume of a single water molecule is found to be equal to 15 into 10 raised to minus 24. So what is the volume? Volume of a single water molecule based on atomic radii of hydrogen and oxygen, how much it is found to be is 15 into 10 raised to minus 24 cubic centimeter. But volume of a single molecule, that is volume of 1 mole of water, is equal to 18 cm cube. This is important to mark that volume of actual one molecule is 18 cm cube. According to crystallographic studies, how much is the volume, student? Is 24 into 10 raised to minus 15 into 10 raised to minus 24 cubic centimeter. So let us calculate the volume of one molecule of water. So volume of one molecule of water will be equal to 15 into 10 raised to minus 24 into Avogadro number. And if you calculate this comes out to be 9 cm cube. Now if you see actual volume, how much is that, student? Is 18 cm cube, but the crystallographic studies has revealed that it is only 9 cm cube. Means 50% of water is hollow from inside, means it is lighter or it is vacant. This is very important to note that when you generally heat this crystal, what will happen to this when ice melts or melting of ice? What will happen? Some of the hydrogen bonds, they are broken, and some of the empty spaces, they are occupied by water. That is liquid water. And it becomes solid. That is what it gets solidified. And because of this, density of ice is less than that of liquid water. So this is very, very important to note that why it is lighter and why it floats on liquid water. So this is about the structure of water. Students, here what I have shown, this is a covalent bond. And this is hydrogen bonds. So this is all about the three types of the molecular solids. Now let us move on to the next one, that is ionic solids. Before going for the ionic solids, let us see the properties of hydrogen bonded molecular solids. Students, you know, as I said, the bonds, they are very, very weak. So they exist as volatile. By this I mean that they are low melting. So they are usually volatile liquids. Those which are having these hydrogen bonds, they are volatile liquids or soft solids at room temperature. This is important. Next is non-conductors of electricity, because there is no free ion, neither the free electrons. And the melting and boiling points, they are low, but generally they are higher than that of polar or non-polar molecular solids. So their melting point or boiling point is higher than that of the polar or the non-polar solids, because the bonds, hydrogen bonds, they are comparatively stronger. So let us move on to the next type of solid, and that is ionic solid. Examples here can be NaCl, KCl, copper chloride, this type of examples. You can have zinc sulfide, etc. Now what you know about ionic solids, so now it will be easy for us to understand what are ionic solids. This is the unit cell. Now here the constituent particles occupying the lattice points, they are positively charged cations and negatively charged anions. Now student, how the constituent cations and the anions, they are arranged? For that, let us see this. If I say this is the cation which is occupying the place here, those are the cations which are present, then the question is, where are the anions? Because you know that when the lattice points, they are having the cations, then there will be the force of repulsion between them. So what you can have here is the anions, they are present between the cations. So this is the position of the cations. This is a three-dimensional structure. So you have this type of crystal structure. If you see that you have cation, anion, this type of arrangement. Now what is the force which is there is the force that we call it as the electrostatic force of attraction. Or you simply call it as ionic bonds are present between the cations and the anions. You also call this as Coulombic force, because this is existing between oppositively charges. So this is about the ionic solids. Very important to note that you know that the electrostatic force of attraction is very, very strong. And because of this, what can be the characteristic? Because of the strong electrostatic force of attraction, they are high melting or boiling solids. Next important is, as the bonds, they are strong, the crystals, they are hard, but rather we use the word that they are brittle. Why they are brittle, student? Because if I see the crystal structure here, you have the cations, the anions in this way. And if I apply a shear force to this, what will happen? The two crystal layers, they will slide on each other. But as the bonds or the interactions, they are very, very strong, instead having the smooth sheets, what will happen is the crystal gets fractured. And therefore we say that this crystal is brittle. Next very important thing about ionic solids is that they are electrically neutral. What is the meaning of electrically neutral, or the crystal must have the electrical neutrality? Means the number of cations is equal to the number of anions present in the crystal lattice. What is the meaning of number of cations and anions? So let's say for example NaCl. Then if I have 100 sodium ions in this ionic solid, then I must have 100 chloride ions to maintain the electrical neutrality. Now very important to note here, if the anion is not chloride, instead it is sulfate, then you know that sulfate has a 2- charge. So for 50 anions, there must be 100 cations. Means for 50 sulfate ions, there must be 100 sodium ions in order to maintain the electrical neutrality. In place of sodium, if you have strontium, see the next case. If you have strontium, strontium is from calcium family, that is a divalent. So if I have 50 strontium, then it can have 100 chloride ions in order to maintain the electrical neutrality. Now, if you see this, there is no free ion, nor the electrons are free, and therefore, ionic solids are bad conductors of heat and electricity. But it's very, very important to note that if I put this ionic solid in water, means ionic solids in aqueous form or molten form do conduct electricity. Means they become a conductor when I dissolve that in water or I heat it to get its molten form. Because when I put that in water or heat it, then the ions, they are separated and then it conducts electricity. So this is about the ionic solids. Because of the strong electrostatic force of attractions, the ions, they are closely packed, and therefore ionic solids, as I said, they are hard and brittle. Next is they are soluble in polar solvents, but they are insoluble in non-polar solvents. You know that like goes in like, ionic solids, they are soluble in polar solvents. So this is about the ionic solids. Let us move on to the next type, that is covalent solids. Covalent solids, the examples here can be of your non-metals. Usually they show this. So you can have silicon carbide or the allotropes of carbon or only silicon giant structures. So they can be the examples here. In covalent solids, the lattice points, they are atoms. So the lattice points, they are occupied by atoms. So constituent particles are atoms of non-metals. Linked to each other, the adjacent atoms, they are bonded to each other by covalent bond. So this is the covalent bond. So this is about the covalent solids. Now, if you see that the covalent bonds, if you see in carbon, it has the ability to form carbon to carbon linkages. Similarly, silicon even has the ability to form this type of structure, and so they form giant molecules. So students, covalent solids, they are also called as network solids. One of the most common example of this crystal is that of diamond, in which the carbon atoms, they are linked together by covalent bonds forming a three-dimensional structure. So let us see the characteristic properties of those solids. As they have covalent bonds, they are strong. So and the next important thing is they are directional in nature. So I will write here that as covalent bonds are strong and directional in nature, those solids are strong and brittle. As the bonds are strong, they are high melting solids. Means their melting and boiling points, they are high. But if you see the crystals, there are no free ions, no free electrons, and therefore they do not conduct heat and electricity. Exception is graphite, fullerene, that we will study as the examples under covalent solids. So let us go for the examples here, students. Examples what we have is, let us take the first one, that is diamond. So let us see the structure of diamond here. If you can see, the carbon atoms, they are bonded covalently to each other, and this is a giant structure what it forms with the bond length here of 154 picometer. So it is an allotrope of carbon. It is usually used in jewelry and it is the most precious metal crystal. Covalent bonds which are seen here between carbon and carbon, they are sp3 hybridized carbon atoms, and this continues in all the directions, thus forming a giant network. Diamond is very strong and hard due to the presence of the strong covalent bonds. It is the hardest material and has very high melting point of about 3550 degrees Celsius. Students, if you see this, it is undergoing sp3 hybridization and therefore no unpaired electron is present or seen in diamond, and therefore it is a insulator. Let us come to the next one, that is graphite. In graphite, you see this type of structure. Graphite is also an allotrope of carbon, in which the carbon atom here is sp2 hybridized. When I say sp2 hybridized, they also form the covalent bonds with 3 other sp2 hybrid orbits, and this results in the formation of interlinked 6-membered ring. You can see here, this is the 6-membered ring which is formed, and every carbon is covalently bonded to the other. As I said, it undergoes sp2 hybridization, means pi bonds, they are formed between carbon atoms by utilizing the half-filled unhybridized 2pz orbital on each carbon atom, and therefore the layers, they are formed in this way. Electrons present, which is in the unhybridized 2pz orbital, is now responsible for conducting electricity, and therefore graphite is a good conductor of heat and electricity. If you see this type of bonds which are present between the hexagonal sheets, they are van der Waals interactions which are very, very weak, and therefore each layer of this graphite can slide over the other. And when I say it can slide over each other, graphite is used as a lubricant for reducing friction. It is also used in ribbons used for printing in computers and typewriters. Also in the lead pencil, this graphite is present. So if you want to see the structure for this sp2 and sp3 hybridization, please refer to hybridization videos. Next allotrope of carbon is fullerene. This is also a carbon-60 compound, or it is called as the Buckminster, and this was first observed in the soot. Soot is the black compound which is formed after burning the hydrocarbon. When a high power laser was focused on carbon, then fullerene was formed, and it has a formula of carbon-60 and shape of a soccer ball. Here also it undergoes sp2 hybridization, and therefore this is also a conductor like graphite. It has 6-membered and 5-membered, that is hexagons and pentagons, which are attached to each other. Fullerene reacts with potassium. So this carbon-60 combines with potassium to form a compound that is K35 and C60. This compound is a superconductor of electricity at 18 Kelvin, means at a low temperature. It reacts with transition metals and it is used as a catalyst. Tubes made from fullerene and graphite, they are nanotubes, and these are used as high strength material, electric conductors, molecular sensors, and as semiconductors. So this is about the covalent solids. Let us come to metallic solids. So let us come to the last type of this crystalline solid, and that is metallic solids. Now in metallic solids, the constituent particles, they are the kernels bonded to the electrons. To understand what is kernel, what is electron, let us take an example of sodium. Students, you know that sodium, because of its low ionization potential, it has the ability to lose the electron and form the corresponding cation and the electron. If I see the crystal of sodium, then how I will see this is every sodium ion is surrounded by its delocalized electron here. So this is the structure of this sodium crystal. Now when I am drawing the negative charge, by that I mean it's an electron. This is how it looks like. The positively charged ions which are present, that is sodium ion here, they are called as kernels. And those are called as the pull or the C of mobile electrons. You know that there is electrostatic force of attraction between a positively charged ions. Same type of attraction is seen between the positively charged kernels and their corresponding negatively charged electrons. This electrostatic force of attraction that exists between the kernel and its electron is a metallic bond. Now, as the number of mobile electrons increases, the strength of the bond also increases. What I mean by that, if I take aluminium, for aluminium crystal, every aluminium ion will be surrounded by 3 electrons. So if I show the aluminium 3+, there will be 3 electrons surrounding it. So the number of electrons as it will increase, conduction also increases and the strength of metallic bond also increases. And so I can say in case of sodium plus, magnesium 2+, or aluminium 3+, which is having the stronger metallic bonds is aluminium, then magnesium, and then sodium. So this also gives you the strength of the bond, gives you the idea about the softness, and so I can say sodium is softer than aluminium. So let us know now, after knowing the metallic bond, come to what are metallic solids. In metallic solids, the constituent particles at the lattice points so I can show in this way. Metallic solids, the constituent particles, they are the kernels. Let's say, for example, I'll write Mn plus here, the metal ion, and they are delocalized electrons, they are bonded to each. So here, if I see there are mobile electrons present here, so what we can say about the conduction, that metallic solids, they are good conductors of heat and electricity. They do conduct because of the mobile electrons. Metallic solids, they are harder as compared to other solids because of the strong metallic bonds. So they are harder as compared to other solids because of strong metallic bonds. The metallic solids, they contain several layers of the metallic ions arranged over one another, and these layers, they slide on each other. Means, if I see the crystal structure in this way, and if I apply the shear force to it, the layers of those crystals, they will slide on each other, and therefore we can get the sheets and we can draw them into wires. To know what is this property to be bitten into sheets and drawn into wires is, so we can have something here. This is what you all know. MSD. This is Mahendra Singh Dhoni as a wicket keeper. So what is malleability? That I can beat that into sheets. And ductility means I can draw them in wires. So metallic solids, they have the tendency or ability to be beaten into sheets, that is malleability, and drawn into wires, that is ductility. So metallic solids, they are malleable and ductile. Now, you know that they can be hammered or rolled into thin sheets of desired thickness, and they can be drawn into wires of required size. Alloys can be formed by fusing the mixture of metals. Now, you know that alloy shows all the properties of metals. Metallic solids also possess metallic luster, due to which the surface appears silvery, and so we say that they have metallic luster also. They have the thermal properties. So this is all about the mobile electron, student. This is important. The surface of gold appears yellow, whereas the surface of copper appears reddish. This is only because of the ability of those metallic substances to reflect the incident light. So this is which of the surfaces show this type of coloration. Some are colorless, but some are colored solids, and this is all about the metallic solids. I hope you like this video. So please subscribe my channel to like the video. Thank you, students.